Munatira Anachari Jamunatira Manachari Jaya Raja Madhava Kunjavihari Gopi Janabala Girivaradhari Gopi Janabala Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Rajajanaranjana Sodanandana Rajajanaranjana Jamunatira Banachari Yamunatira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Starting in about 2 minutes. Yamunatira Banachari Yamunatira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Janavallabha Yamunatira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjavihari. Okay. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. And we're going to make this as interactive as possible. So please put any questions or comments, realizations or doubts in the chat. And if you want to join me on Zoom, that is also possible. Hare Krishna. So welcome again to on our ongoing journey of self-realization, studying the most basic and earth-shaking knowledge presented, available, ever, anywhere, by the mercy of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, our beloved founder Acharya. Now, as usual, I'm asking you to immerse yourself in the sound vibration emanating from the lotus mouth of His Divine Grace, Prabhupada, as he chants the most auspicious Mangalacharana on this extra auspicious day, Shri Ekadashi Vrat. We minimize the activities of the body and increase our devotional activities, especially hearing and chanting. It doesn't mean we minimize our service. If we're going to do a special fast, that's great. But if you get weak or it reduces your service, adjust that. So just Absorb yourself in the sound of, see Prabhupada's words, the vibration coming from him, his teachings, his words, his guidance, his advice, his chanting as a great ocean. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, no one can make any spiritual advancement. Therefore, I should always remember my spiritual master. And at least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. Prabhupada is giving us Krishna. Therefore, his words are like an ocean, a fathomless, bottomless ocean of realization, of connection with Krishna, of happiness, of liberation beyond the happiness and distress of this world, which we're going to read about today. So just immerse yourself, relax. If you're sitting comfortably, peacefully, just dive into this sound and let it wash over you. Close your eyes and listen. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Yes, the more we absorb ourselves in the sound vibration. Sometimes Prabhupada would give lectures in Hindi, and the Western disciples were with him. They didn't understand anything linguistically. It didn't matter. Just hearing the vibration is what we want to do. So we'll chant Jai Radha Madhava just briefly. Please chant responsively. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Banachari Jamunatira Banachari. Hare Krishna. Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Parivrajikacharya, Astatara Satashi, Srimad His Divine Grace, Abhay Charnar Vinda Bhakti Vedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Guru Parampara Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Sadhu Sangha Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavad-gita Ki Jai, Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai, Shri Panchatattva Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Subharan Baladev Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radhagiri Dari Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari 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 Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. If you just joined us, welcome again on this most auspicious Ekadashi day. Now we're going to jump into the Bhagavad-gita. I'm going to read a few preceding verses because these are earth-shaking, and for a materialist, earth-shattering verses. First, Krishna, in verse 11, Krishna says, the Blessed Lord said to Arjuna, and he is speaking this to you and I. Visualize that Krishna is standing in front of you and he is speaking these words to you, for you, out of concern and love and encouragement for you. The Blessed Lord said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. So with that, Krishna starts to instruct the most foundational, essential, earth-shaking information. Verses 12 and pretty much a whole bunch of verses right through to verse 30, where he takes it into the practical. 31. He moves from describing the soul, explaining the soul, elaborating on how the soul cannot be affected. It's individual, eternally individual. It can't be burned by fire, or moistened by water, or dried by the wind. And he who thinks that it can be, he doesn't understand. So many different descriptions and explanations and qualifying definitions of you and I, our eternal nature. And then in 31, he takes it into Arjuna's practical life. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. And so there's no need for hesitation. So if we take that verse and consider whatever our duty is, you may not be a Kshatriya, you may be a mother taking care of children, you may be a teacher, you may be a businessman, you may be a pot washer, a cook, a book distributor. this verse, according to your nature, not necessarily those activities that you do, but your nature and your duty, which depends on your nature. Your real duty comes out of your own nature. Someone may have more goodness. Someone may have more passion. Someone may have more ignorance. It doesn't matter in terms of devotional service. Obviously, mode of goodness is better and conducive. You should know that there's no better engagement for you than fighting. So doing whatever your duty is, cooking, taking care of the baby, teaching, doing business, distributing books, washing the pots. There's no better engagement than doing it based on religious principles. So there's no need to hesitate. So someone may say, well, I'm not sure. I feel very hesitant or doubtful. That's because we haven't understood fully our own selves, or we're listening our mind, even though we have understood and heard, listening to our mind saying, oh, I can't do that, or I can't understand that, or I'm not intelligent enough. I'm not so many things, or I don't deserve it, or Krishna doesn't love me, or I'm so sinful. These mental concoctions are what we're going to talk about today. Different kinds of distress or freedom from distress, happiness. So by studying Srila Prabhupada's books, and especially by hearing them and discussing with them, hearing and chanting them, repeating our own realizations, doubts or questions, realizations, it doesn't matter, with other like-minded devotees, especially discussing. That is also Sankirtan. That is Kirtan. That is our process. So we do it ourselves, and as we perfect it, and even as we don't perfect it, we share it with others. Therefore, we become enthused, we become energized, we become strengthened to go more deeply ourselves, deal with the crazy mind, control the mind, which Arjuna says practically impossible. And Krishna says, yes, you're right. But it is possible. By what? Two things: practice and detachment. Practice and detachment. Developing different habits. And I want to read you something very special from a letter by Srila Prabhupada, from Srila Prabhupada to one of his disciples in 1975. Let's see. Yes, Prabhupada was in Mumbai, then Bombay, writing to one of his disciples, Bahurupa Das. He writes, "My dear Bahurupa Das, please accept my blessings. I am in due receipt of your letter dated September 24th, 1974. This is 1974. This is not just the beginning. This is right in the middle of in fact, probably the heyday of all the book distribution. I am pleased to hear that you are chanting 16 rounds a day and reading my books regularly and following the 4 rules. In my books, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is explained fully. So if there is anything which you do not understand, then you simply have to read again and again." I'll repeat that. In my books, the philosophy of Krishna consciousness is explained fully. So if there is anything which you do not understand, then you simply have to read again and again. And I'll add on to that. And again and again and again. So Prabhupada's clearly saying that if we don't understand something, simply continue reading his books again and continuously. By reading daily, the knowledge will be revealed to you. And by this process, your spiritual life will develop. Krishna consciousness will develop. Full stop. Krishna consciousness is not a hackneyed thing, but it is something which is our natural and original consciousness. But I'm going to repeat that. By reading daily, the knowledge will be revealed to you. It's important that we have this faith. By continuing studying Srila Prabhupada's books, the ocean of unlimited realization depth, understanding, freedom from doubt and material attachment. Unlimited, perfect, complete ocean of all knowledge. And often we equate the word knowledge with realization. This is not just book. We're apparently studying a book, but this is we're stepping into the spiritual world by which Krishna is standing right in front of us. Whether it's a pure devotee speaking about Krishna or Krishna himself standing right in front of us, speaking to us. Krishna consciousness is not a hackneyed thing, but it is something which is our natural and original consciousness. So it's not something imposed, superimposed. It's there. We're bringing it out. It's not a belief. It's a fact that's already there, whether we believe or doubt or are fully convinced or not. A blind man may not see the sun. Does it mean the sun doesn't exist? Presently, our consciousness is clouded, just like a mirror becomes covered with dust. So the cleansing process is this chanting and hearing and doing some service and trying to please the spiritual master. By this process, our consciousness becomes clear and we are able to understand everything. By this process, our Krishna consciousness becomes clear and we are able to understand everything. So far, Gayatri Mantra is concerned, of course, it is not such an important thing. The main thing is to chant the Hare Krishna, but you can consult with the GBC, spiritual authorities, and get their recommendation. The Hare Krishna mantra is sufficient for becoming Krishna conscious. I'll repeat that. The Hare Krishna mantra is sufficient for becoming Krishna conscious. You may please me the most by reading my books and following the instructions therein, and by becoming fully Krishna conscious in this lifetime. I'll repeat that 10 times again. You may please me the most by reading my books and following the instructions therein. You may please me the most. We want to please Srila Prabhupada. And here he's saying how you do it. You may please me the most by reading my books and following the instructions therein, and by becoming fully Krishna conscious in this lifetime. I hope this meets you in good health. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I have another quote, but I don't have the reference. A short one. Your realizations will become more profound the deeper into the books you go. Your realizations will become more profound the deeper into the books you go. In other words, the deeper we go into the books, the more profound our realization, our conviction, our connection with Krishna increases and expands. And there's no limit to that. So someone may say, well, I've read the whole Srimad Bhagavatam and the Gita and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yes. And you read them again and again. And the deeper you go, the more advanced you become. So I wanted to share that with you because studying Srila Prabhupada's books in good association will give us everything. Everything will become clear. So this verse, I'll do the Sanskrit, 2:15, Bhagavad-gita 2:15, chapter 2, verse 15, chapter entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized. I'll say the Sanskrit myself. Yang hina vyatayante te purusham purusharshava samaduka sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. Yang hina vyatayante te purusham purusharshava samaduka sukham dhiram somritatvaya kalpate. Please repeat after me. If you're not on Zoom, I can't hear you, but that's okay. I'll leave a little space. Repeat each Sanskrit word after me and then the English. Yam, one who. He, certainly. Na, never. Vyatayanti, are distressing. Ete, all these. Purusham, to a person. Purusharshava is best among men. Sama, unaltered. Dukkha, distress. Sukham, happiness. Dhiram, patient. Sa, he. Amritatpaya, for liberation. Kalpate is considered eligible. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Anytime any questions come up or anything you want to share, please put it in the restream, put it in the chat. Then I can see that if I switch back and forth, and we can go into your question or share your realization. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Please repeat after me. O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Purport. Anyone who is steady in his determination for the advanced stage of spiritual realization and can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness is certainly a person eligible for liberation. In the Varnashram institution, the fourth stage of life, namely the renounced order, sannyas, is a painstaking situation. But one who is serious about making his life perfect, surely adopts the sannyas order of life in spite of all difficulties. The difficulties usually arise from having to sever family relationships, to give up the connection of wife and children. But if anyone is able to tolerate such difficulties, surely his path to spiritual realization is complete. Similarly, in Arjuna's discharge of duties as a Kshatriya, he is advised to persevere, even if it is difficult to fight with his family members or similarly beloved persons. Lord Chaitanya took sannyas at the age of 24, and his dependent, young wife as well as old mother, had no one else to look after them. Yet for a higher cause, he took sannyas and was steady in the discharge of higher duties. That is the way of achieving liberation from material bondage. Nama Om Vishnupadaya, Krishna Pristaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pracharne, Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pashtatadi Satarne, Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So my question, I introduced today's lecture, discussion with why desire liberation? Not a trick question. Why desire liberation? So Prabhupada, he talks about steadiness here, steadiness and determination. And he uses the example of the sannyas order. It's a painstaking situation to give up family and friends, relatives, and family connection, or to give up the comforts of household life, material life. Not that we give them up, but we become detached from them and become less engaged in creating them or adjusting them for our own comfort. And then the verse says that one who is steady in the determination to do that, and therefore can equally tolerate the onslaughts of distress and happiness. Now, first of all, we may think that, oh, Prabhupada's talking about sannyas. I'm not sannyasa. I'll probably never take sannyas. But sannyas is a consciousness. We should be striving to take sannyas gradually as we advance, which means that I'm become less and less concerned about my comfort or my distress. And that's the end of this first sentence. The symptom that I am becoming more detached, more comfortable in my own skin, so to speak, peaceful, self-satisfied, Atmaramas Chamunayo. Lord Chaitanya explained that verse 64 different ways. The Atmarama verse. The symptom, a symptom that we're becoming more detached, is that we will be less disturbed. We'll be able to tolerate not only distress. I often say to people, yeah, difficult to tolerate, be undisturbed in pain and suffering, in doubt and misery and anxiety, in conflict. But wait till you have to tolerate happiness. We are attached to being happy materially. We're attached to being comfortable. We don't like to get out of our comfort zone, whether we're couch potatoes or we just have nice facilities and we expect to have them. I'm preaching to myself as much as anyone else right now, okay? Most of the time, actually. Krishna sends comforts and technology, computers, nice cars, big bank balance. Someone may think, oh, I don't have any of those. Well, wait till you do, because Krishna's going to give them to you for his service. He gives according to what we need and how we best advance. He adjusts, but need to be ready for that. Look at Prabhupada. Prabhupada was traveling all around the world. He said, if I spend 3 days in each of my centers, that takes me the whole year, because he was here in Auckland. I was listening to a lecture, Prabhupada, here in Auckland. He was actually giving a class on this verse, and then there were reporters there and journalists there, and they were asking questions. Oh, Your Divine Grace, so you travel all the time? Prabhupada said, I have more than 100 homes, and I'm not allowed to stay in any of them for more than 3 days. And he laughed. Prabhupada had all the opulence. He had hundreds and thousands of followers, worshippers, admirers, beautiful properties, cars, whenever he wanted, wherever he went, most wonderful food. And Prabhupada, it's hard to imagine how he was so detached. And yet he didn't try to be comfortable in any of those situations. He was speaking tongue in cheek that he wasn't allowed. He himself established that standard, that he didn't stay in one place. Sometimes he would stay for translation or for a particular situation, he would stay longer, but generally he didn't. And he wasn't forcing himself. He was completely satisfied, whether he stayed or not. So Prabhupada is a perfect example of this verse. Undisturbed by happiness or distress. So for devotees, they're the same. And as we develop that strength, that inner confidence, naturally that detachment comes. We don't have to force ourselves or strive separately. We simply need to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, calling on the Lord and establishing our continuing to establish, strengthen, and expand our dependence on Krishna, that we don't need anything else. And on this most auspicious day of Ekadashi, it's especially easy. We get more support, we get more encouragement, we get more facility for doing that. We minimize the bodily activities, not just for the sake of minimizing, but because we can absorb ourselves, we can leave those things aside more of the day. Personally, I fast on Ekadashi, I fast till noon every day. Except maybe water or some juice. That's my practice right now. My physical constitution goes well with that. And of course, we don't eat any grains or beans, rice, dal, peas, anything like that. Ekadashi is especially meant for giving. It provides us a more conducive, an easier atmosphere in which to chant and absorb ourselves in hearing and chanting, associating, studying. We should be studying Srila Prabhupada's books every day, rigidly, at least something. Prabhupada, when he heard that devotees in, I think it was Chicago, they were having like 5 classes a day, Prabhupada was very happy. Hearing and chanting, hearing and chanting, hearing and chanting, and also being fully engaged in service, practical service, according to our nature, all the rest of the time. The person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation. Now, liberation, Prabhupada goes on to say, he gives the example of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya was a perfect devotee. He was Krishna, but he came as the perfect devotee. And as an example, he gave up a situation which was fully conducive for his Krishna consciousness. And yet he wanted to give that example, to give that up at the age of 24. Obedient, submissive, fully qualified partner, wife at home, and a most adoring, pure mother. They were obviously great devotees. And yet Lord Chaitanya, to teach us that whether our family members, wife, husband, mother, father, are devotees or not, it's important that we become so strong in Krishna consciousness that without being disrespectful, we become so clear about how we can best be Krishna conscious ourselves and share it with others. Make that prominent, make that priority. Everything else can be adjusted. So this is foundational. So consider, can you tolerate happiness? How are you tolerating distress, the doubts, the anxieties, the lack of enough material facilities to do what you'd like to do in Krishna consciousness? Allowing those things to be so prominent can be a way of avoiding Krishna consciousness. We have created our own misfortune. We have created our own lack. Krishna hasn't created that. Taking full responsibility is a symptom of human life. But to speak of spiritual life, taking full responsibility that if I'm suffering or enjoying, I've created that. If I have not enough abundance to pay the bills, not enough income, enough finance, I've co-created that. Somehow, out of a scarcity mentality, instead of opening myself fully to Krishna's mercy in every way, I have chosen to be in scarcity. The more we take responsibility, and this is not a blame game. This is not about being wrong or bad. This is being connecting with our own spiritual self in self-realization, that I, as an eternal servant of Krishna, have nothing wanting. Nasochati nakankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu. Neither lamenting about something I might have lost or don't have, or desiring something I don't have. Nasochati nakankshati. And whether we realize it or not, stop making excuses that, oh, this is my karma, this is my mind. Those things are all real, but they're temporarily real. And we have them, we experience them, or have them in our lives. They're there in our lives because we have chosen them. And giving up that attachment to either the abundance or the scarcity, the happiness or distress, giving up the attachment to that, tolerating. Krishna says, not disturbed, and steady in both. If I have a lot or I have very little, being steady. Now, in our material condition, it's important to be peaceful and happy and confident and free and joyful. It's important to be those things. So those are symptoms of the liberated soul. Liberated soul is naturally experiencing his or her own spiritual qualities. I call them diamond qualities of the self. We as spiritual beings, in spite of having a conditioned body and mind, we're full of those: peacefulness, power, spiritual pride, detachment, happiness, joy, confidence, effectiveness. These are all spiritual qualities. And someone may say, yes, but. Yes, we have our buts. We have our conditioning. At the same time, we should understand that our conditioning is the habits which we've co-created with Krishna. We've accepted this habit is me, it's part of my life. I have the habit of not chanting all my rounds or enough rounds, or not studying every day. I've chosen that. I can also adjust my life, just like myself. I find that I often allow my schedule to slip, and I end up eating late at night, especially grains after 6 p.m. and then I suffer because I struggle to use the time after the meal to do something productive, or to speak of getting up the next morning. And probably every day when it happens, I think, well, what's the big deal? I can schedule my day in the morning, the times that I'm going to have my meals. I'm not going to beat myself up about it, but I'm going to be serious about doing that every day, making the schedule in the morning so that I have my main meal closer to noon and some high tea, whatever you call it, in the evening at 5 or 5:30, something like that. And if it's light, maybe a little after 6, but not main meal, which I end up often doing, having my main meal in the evening. It doesn't work for me. And when I adjust, I feel light. I can do more in the evening instead of losing the whole evening and then struggling to get up early, having Mangalarti. In that regard, I'll invite you all for our our virtual Mangalarti, Tuesdays through Fridays at 5:30, a little later than usual. 5:30, we go on. We have a condensed morning program. Guru Vastaka, Lord Nrsingadev prayers, Tulsi prayers, condensed Tulsi prayers, and then some discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam. We're now going through the first canto, 12th chapter. Maharaj Pariksit saved. Yes, in the womb. So we finish off with a bunch of kalpas, and we have japa, finishing around 7, sometime between 7 and 7:30. So you can join us anytime between 5:30 and when we finish 7:30, as much or as little as you want. And if you like, you can Hare Krishna Madhumangala Prabhu. Thanks for joining us. Anemana Beach. I'm not sure where that is. And that's okay. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate your presence and your association. So, getting on with, so my point is that we can take charge for Krishna. We can decide, all right, I'm going to do this in my life, and I'm not going to do that in my life. And I develop a new habit. That's the challenge. Prabhupada said it's not that it's difficult, but it's because we have habits which are different. We think it's difficult. We experience it as difficult or painful to give up particular attachment, particular habit. Prabhupada says not, because the soul is not attached or doesn't need any of those things. But we've created a habit. So when we try to give them up, it seems difficult, it seems painful, it seems foreign. Oh, I'm going to lose something. I won't be happy. I won't be satisfied if I give that up. And we don't force ourselves, but by absorbing ourselves more into hearing and chanting, especially with other devotees, discussing and continuing to read, as I said before, as I quoted from Prabhupada before, the more we go deeply into Prabhupada's books, the more profound our realizations will be, with faith and conviction that everything is there. If we haven't understood it yet, Prabhupada said, keep reading or read again and again. If you want to have that letter, I'll send it to you. And also I can send you the Zoom link for our virtual Mangalarti, if and when you wanted to join us. It'd be good if you let me know the day before if you are going to join us, just so I know to welcome you into the Zoom. And if you're in Northland, and come over to our place here for Mangalarti in person. I would definitely need to know the day before about that. Make sure the lights are on and doors are open. Doors open. So maybe there's some questions or comments. Much more to say. but to know that these verses are foundational, and the more we dive into them, the more we can understand that and experience that I am beyond the body. Knowing it doesn't make much, if any, difference until knowing becomes vigyan. Realized knowledge becomes part of me. It's not just a thought, it's my experience. And that experience gives us enthusiasm to go further and strength to go further. And look at all my excuses, all my avoidance, the so-called reasons why I'm not so advanced or so able to do what Guru and Krishna necessarily want me to do. So we can look at that and see how Krishna is giving us instructions. How to transform that, how to purify that. Last week we were reading about controlling the mind. Where's verse 12? Actually, we've been studying the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And the preface, Prabhupada focuses in one section about how controlling the mind is the first thing. Again and again, he says, first control the mind and senses, because that is the foundation for everything else, which is built on the foundation of this section of the Bhagavad-gita, to make it very clear that I am completely different. I'm beyond, I'm transcendental to this. I'm in the body, but I'm not the body. I have a body, but I'm not the body. I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. I have feelings, but I'm not my feelings. On the foundation of this, we are able to see the distinction between our mind and ourselves. And therefore, when we're chanting, or actually Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, the first thing when you get up in the morning is beat your mind with shoes. So the more we distinguish between that mind and me, because many of us think we identify with our mind. Naturally, we may go beyond identifying with the body, but then we identify with the subtle body. Air, ether, mind, and false egoism. We identify with the mind. That mind is directing us constantly, and we think that's us. But we can take a step back. What does that mind just say? Oh, I don't believe it. Oh, I'm not able to realize that. Oh, I'm too sleepy or tired. Oh, this is boring. I've heard it before. Mind is constantly, Mahavishnu, the Gujarati Swami, used to say, if we understood the depth and complexity of the mind, we'd faint. It seems inconceivable, and we don't have to understand it fully. We have to understand that we're different from it, and therefore stand back. Matras Sparshas, one should learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. That is, this verse here is carrying on from that. The person who's not disturbed by happiness and distress, which come through the mind and the senses. The mind is saying, what does the mind do? It accepts and rejects for our material happiness, and we can notice that. So I'm hesitating to turn the cold water on in the shower in the morning. I'm hesitating. It's going to be cold. I don't want it'll be painful. And when I'm ready, when I have the habit, I do it anyway, and it comes out wonderfully. The mind doesn't go along with that. The mind does something else. So I say, all right, and I develop a habit to turn it on, turn the cold on anyway. At least finish my shower with cold. Pooh, wake up. It's the most wonderful experience, as most of you probably know. So the mind is telling us so many non-Krishna conscious things. Until the mind is fixed, Prabhupada says, he defines liberation. One definition of liberation is when we finish with all material thoughts. So my question in the beginning, the title of the class is, why desire liberation? Some people think that, well, it's a fact. Pure devotees do not desire liberation. They think that liberation is just waiting at my door with its hands her hands folded, waiting to serve me. But if we pretend or artificially put ourselves on that level of pure devotion, and we think, oh, I shouldn't desire liberation, then we should question that. Because what does liberation mean? Some of the qualities of liberation are, well, experiencing our spiritual selves, being completely peaceful, especially in household life. Prabhupada says we have to be peaceful in household life in order to progress in that ashram. Now, in this Kali Yuga, that's very, very rare. And for some of us, it's impossible. So we take that impossible situation and adjust accordingly, according to our particular situation, for our advancement in Krishna consciousness. But the point is, it's best for our spiritual life to be peaceful, to be undisturbed, to be happy, to be joyful, to be powerful, to be free, to be satisfied. These are qualities of the soul. So to desire to be peaceful, to be happy, if the purpose of the point of this verse, becoming eligible for liberation, it's obviously a desirable thing. Not that we desire it as a goal, but if it's helpful, if being liberated, if feeling peaceful, happy, joyful, satisfied in my own skin, confident, spiritually proud, powerful, spiritually powerful, is helpful for our devotional service, then we should accept it. We should desire it. Lord Chaitanya, first two principles that Lord Chaitanya gave us of surrender are what? Accepting everything that's favorable for Krishna consciousness and rejecting anything that's not. The very first principle, if it's helpful for me to be peaceful and focus on my rounds, why should I not desire that? In the same way, generally, desiring liberation in our conditioned state is valuable. It's healthy. If we artificially put start where we should be instead of where we really are, we're going to fall on our face and we're going to remain unpeaceful, disturbed, hoping, expecting that one day I'll be Krishna conscious by the mercy of Guru and Krishna. Krishna said, no. As you surrender unto me, I reward you according to that. You take the first step. You give your mind, whether you're going to take the cold shower, turn the cold on, or you're going to give your mind fully to the holy names without and tolerate all those excuses or reasons that you can't or couldn't, or the material situation or my karma, blah, 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 blah. Those things are all materially valid, but they're temporary and they're not real. They're not coming from Krishna. They're not on the spiritual platform. They're not the platform of liberation. So if liberation is desirable or helpful, then we should desire it. At the same time, trusting that we'll go way beyond that. I will come to the level of pure devotional service if I accept whatever is good for me in my devotional service. Whatever is good. We don't limit that. We don't qualify that. If it helps me in my devotional service, and Rupa Goswami says clearly, if something that's apparently material is not used for devotional service, that's incomplete renunciation. So we renounce things that we think a pure devotee renounced, and we fail because we're not pure devotees. We're conditioned. And that's reality. We may know that we're not conditioned, but in that moment we are. So let's get really real, and therefore advance more quickly in our Krishna consciousness, accepting anything that helps me in my Krishna consciousness. For someone, it may be sleeping 8 hours. For someone, it may be sleeping 4 hours. We know what the goal is, but what is real for me right now? And Krishna, as I said in verse 30, he takes it into Arjuna's practice, 31 actually, into Arjuna's practical situation. He says, considering your specific duties of Kshatriya, so what is your duty? Are you a businessman in your present life? Are you a mother, father, caretaker of the children? Are you a pot washer? Are you a book distributor? Whatever. According to your nature, your specific duty, which arises out of your nature, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than doing it based on religious principles. So there's nothing better, Krishna says. There's no better engagement. There's nothing better that you could be doing right now, here and now. Yes, maybe one day you want to be in Vrindavan, chanting 64 rounds a day, etc. Yes, and you will attain that if, according to your nature right now, you act. And Krishna says there's nothing better that to Arjuna, to you, to all of us. There is no better engagement than doing what you're doing based on religious principles. So there is no need for hesitation. We hesitate, we doubt, we have excuses. Krishna says there's no need for that. Krishna is taking it into the practical reality of our present conditioned state. And he's speaking to Arjuna, he's speaking to us because Arjuna is acting as if he's conditioned. That's the mercy of Krishna and Arjuna, to arrange that for our enlightenment, for our awareness. So it's time to finish. I've already gone over a minute. So any questions or comments? We'll go 5 more minutes just in case there are any questions or comments. Sometimes I may be saying something that seems very strange or radical that we've never heard before. That's it's okay. I invite doubts or challenges or discussion, even argument. I need all the help and enlightenment and support, often challenge, that I can get. Please be kind. Share your thoughts. Share your doubts, your realizations. And I'll see if I can put the address, the Zoom link. Yeah, let's see if we can do this into the chat so that you can, kind of long. Yeah, okay. Yep. So there you have the link. I hope that's enough. Either way, that's good for joining this class. Obviously, you can join on the Krishna Katha Auckland Facebook or YouTube pages as well, which is where you are now. But you can also join on Zoom. There you go. And we can talk. We can share directly. Lots of fun. The more interactive, the more personal. I'm just going to put a little chat in there just in case you're there. You can respond on the Zoom chat. I don't like to make it complicated, but I like to have interaction because that makes it more lively and it keeps people more absorbed. And that link is also for our 5:30 morning program, virtual morning program, Tuesdays through Fridays, 4 days a week so far, 5:30 till about 7:30, including some japa. So you're most welcome to join us and share your association. And if there's nothing else, we'll finish up now. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki jai. Shri Ekadashi Vrat ki jai. Sadhu Sangha ki jai. Let us now offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees and can fulfill the desires of everyone, who are full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. Hare Krishna.